Hey guys, this is Afro, back again with another monologue. Well, the last episode I talked about a topic that was somewhat still relevant, but for this episode, I thought I'd get a little bit more topical. By talking about what exactly? Well, a fairly recent trend that seems to be plaguing the internet as well as the entertainment field in general. The recent scandals involving famous creative minds and actors. Ho ho ho, boy will this be quite the episode. I can't be the only one who's noticed this freaky trend of famous entertainment figures getting exposed as either sexual predators or just not what they seemed on the surface, thus tarnishing their images and reputations in the process, as it's a phenomenon that hasn't really stopped in the past year that it started. Now, some have claimed that this is to 2018 what all the celebrity deaths were to 2016, but then again, this was something that started around the fall of 2017, and then continued on to this year. And, let's be honest, people die every year. But this still seems to be the next recurring trend involving celebrities that seems to be plaguing our pop culture. I won't be going through every single scandal as, well, we'd be here all day if we did. I'm just going over three that left quite a long impression on me throughout my life, and talk about how they've affected me personally. These three I'm talking about are John Lasseter, Doug Walker, and Butch Hartman. Starting with Lasseter, he's a guy that needs no introduction. Not only is he one of the biggest names in animation, but he was one of the brainchilds of the kings of CG animation, Pixar. One of the biggest names of my childhood, as well as making some of my all-time favorite animated films. Not only that, but he was the one who brought Disney back on their feet at a time where Pixar was the only good thing going for them, making the 2010s their biggest decade since the 90s. But that's not all, as we all know about his friendship with Hayao Miyazaki, and having his films, and Ghibli as a whole, become more mainstream in the States, we do kinda have Lasseter to thank for that. So saying all that, it's probably no surprise that I felt very betrayed when I heard about him touching women in inappropriate ways. It made me feel the same pain a bunch of Loud House fans probably felt when they learned about Chris Savino. It especially sucks because he honestly seemed better than this. When you looked at him in interviews, he seems like a very humble, sweet guy. One that was very passionate about both animation and his personal hobbies. Plus, watching interviews with him, whether it involved his movies or giving intros to Miyazaki's films, he always came across as an adult who was a kid at heart. But this controversy showed that he was a kid at heart, but probably not in the best way possible. But I feel the worst aspect of this is that he was acting this way to women while being a family man. I really don't want to know what his confrontation with his family was like. And I feel the scandal really cemented how flawed and human Pixar truly is. Not just in their filmmaking, but their management as well. But what was revealed about Pixar seemed a G in comparison to what happened to Channel Awesome, once the not-so-awesome document was made a few months later. For nearly 10 years, going to That Guy with the Glasses and watching The Nostalgia Critic was one of my favorite pastimes during my teen/young adult years. I found Doug's reviews and analysis to be fairly fun and entertaining, even being stuff I watched to cool myself down after a long day of school, or even the times I was working. Plus, I got into some of the other members of the site, like Nostalgia Chick, Film Brain, Phaelus, Mike J, Todd in the Shadows, Suede, Sage, etc. They in some ways helped shape the part of my older years, as despite my occasional disagreements with Doug, he still seemed like a nice, passionate guy who had a good camaraderie with his fellow reviewers. But much like John Lasseter, the Change the Channel controversy proved otherwise. Except it was much, much worse. The documents and grievances really showed Doug in a more negative light as someone who was beyond egotistical, to the point that he really wasn't willing to treat his fellow reviewers with the respect they deserved, as he hogged a lot of the channel's limelight, and even neglecting people like Obscurus Lupa, which led to her leaving the site. Not to mention that he was willing to play a part of that really shady GoFundMe project for that abysmal pop quiz hotshot. Which, personally, the only good thing to me was when they had that Ed cosplayer from Ed, Edd n Eddy. But perhaps the biggest story that showed Doug's true colors was involving the production of those anniversary films. As someone who only saw each of them once, this really made me see them in a different light, as what the walkers did to the crew was just pure cruelty. Having some sleep in a hot attic instead of a hotel, not providing water when they were shooting in a desert, not informing people about him ending the NC character, or even leaving some crew members behind as they went to Applebee's. And these were the same brothers who made fun of The Room. Funny how the Disaster Artist premiered just a few months before Change the Channel started, because this has really made Doug and Rob look like giant hypocrites. Worst part is, this probably isn't even the worst thing Doug has ever done, but rather the stuff he did that involves Jew Wario. Yeah, I don't think I need to explain, nor do I want to, as just thinking of it makes me feel dirty. Truth be told, when this scandal started and got worse and more contributors left the site, while I was really disgusted and disappointed in both Doug and Rob, a part of me did hope that maybe the whole Change the Channel thing could have them reflect on their past actions. That maybe they can get the NC rights back from Ashad, start another site of their own, and reconcile with their past allies, and learn to grow to be better people. But as time went on and rumors were debunked, it became clear that the Walkers really had no interest in doing that, as they instead tried to distract people from the Change the Channel movement by reviewing such low-hanging fruits like the Emoji Movie and Boss Baby, as well as mooching off of Deadpool's success with that god-awful Deadpool 2 review. He really has some nerve claiming he loves Deadpool when he spends the whole review misrepresenting and bastardizing the film in question. And the less said about the Rick and Morty skits, the better. It really disgusted me that Doug would rather be Mashad's bitch than to own up and apologize for his actions. And hearing Brad Jones have a similar attitude in that Double Toasted interview makes me glad I was never big on the guy. But even with that, the pattern just kept going once Butch Hartman came into the ring, with his whole Oaxis Kickstarter scandal. You know, when he first started his YouTube channel, I found his videos to be really fun to watch. Sure, the clickbait was very annoying, but aside from that, it was cool seeing him time-lapse his artwork as it seemed to display his talent and creativity. I really liked seeing him draw characters from other franchises in his own style, and showing off his own creative takes and ideas with them. I also liked the videos where he talked about his past work, as well as the gigs he had with Pocahontas and Dougal. And of course the fact that I did have good memories watching his first two shows. The highlights of them for me were Channel Chasers and the crossovers they had with Jimmy Neutron. But then we get to his whole "I created your childhood" spiel. Look, Butch, that statement is only valid to those who've actually watched and liked your shows growing up. And even then, that statement is still pretty pretentious. But I'm stalling here, so let's get to what he became infamous for. On June 18th of this year, he announced that he would be making a new streaming service called Oaxis. And after that, his campaign wasn't given the best reception, as many people found his explanations on what Oaxis would be very vague and suspicious. He really didn't give much information on what it would be like and what type of content would be featured on there. But when his goal was finally reached, it only got worse from there, as he announced that Oaxis is going to be a Christian-based streaming service. Okay, it's not like he said that, but he said that he was going to include Christian values in some of his shows. But it's still something he should have said the moment he announced Oaxis. But then again, the Kickstarter probably wouldn't have succeeded if he did. And I'm pretty sure some of the backers don't even share the same beliefs as him, which I don't doubt that they probably felt tricked afterwards. You know, for being a devout Christian, he seems to forget the Bible's lessons about not stealing and deceiving people. And furthermore, it was at this point where a lot of people were catching on to the surprisingly big ego Butch seems to have, with some of the stuff he said on his live streams and podcasts, some of which were pretty tasteless, or how he's not willing to acknowledge when he's made a mistake, instead trying to pin the blame on Nick for the creations of Sparky and Chloe. It was truly disappointing seeing Butch go down this path as a creator and YouTuber. Also, way to make Christians look even worse, Butch. And this coming from a fellow Christian. So as you can tell, that's 3 times a famous entertainment figure I looked up to and respected really let me down, sometimes in the worst way possible. I mean, hey, it's a really shitty feeling when you see an idol of yours do some pretty immoral things that ruins your image on them. But why does that seem to happen a lot, especially recently? Well, I think it's the old story of how fame can really get to people's heads, spawning egos that could come from the amount of praise and recognition they get. They think that because they garnered such a big, or at times revolutionary reputation, they could get away with pretty questionable things. Or in terms of what happened with James Gunn recently, you could once say things prior to your big break that while you may take back now, it can come back to haunt you, and certain people won't let you forget it. So fame and fortune can really get the better of you if you're not careful. But if someone isn't like that, they could find themselves pretty miserable. Morgan Freeman, an actor I love, hearing his own sexual harassment stories and the way he apologized, while you don't agree with his actions, you can still get an idea of what led him to act that way. It really shows that fame isn't what it's cracked up to be, sadly. But in some ways, I feel lucky that the one guy who managed to have a lasting impact on me was the one who owned up and apologized properly, John Lasseter. To his credit, he did seem genuinely sorry, and he seems to be taking his reside in stride. Sure, a part of me is sad to see him go, but with what he's done, it's for the best. And I think Disney will be in good hands. Pete Docter was always my first choice to be John's successor, and Jennifer Lee, while she may be a more recent figure, having a woman run Disney's animation division is a step in the right direction. As for the other two, I may have called Doug Walker an idol at one point, but he just made videos that I found funny at the time, nothing more. And I'd be lying if I said that I didn't develop pet peeves with the guy in recent years. Plus, when I tried to watch his reviews post-controversy, I just realized how empty and hollow they've really become. But as a good friend of mine said on DA, Doug's words can all be added up to the old saying, it's just his opinion. A very, very dirty opinion. With Butch Hartman, again, I have good memories with Fairly OddParents and Danny Phantom, and I do respect his ability to come up with multiple ideas for cartoons, whether they're picked up or not, but I honestly lost interest in his work around 2008, and I never really saw him as a huge inspiration to me, when compared to the likes of Steven Hillenburg, Joe Murray, and Danny Antonucci. But I know my girlfriend really looks up to him, which makes me feel bad on her behalf. Heck, I remember getting her Butch's sketchbook for her birthday, which was actually the same day he announced Oaxis. So, talk about harsher in hindsight. But while she is disappointed, she still sees his work and style as an influence to her own. Which I guess leads to the old saying, you separate the art from the artist. The show or film can be seen as its own thing, as they've been made by multiple people. I mean, Toy Story was also Pete Docter, Andrew Stanton, Joe Ranft, and Lee Unkrage's baby as it was John's. And despite what Butch says, it was other people that made his shows the way they are. And even with what happened to Channel Awesome, we still have the former contributors to enjoy, as they seem to be doing fine on their own now. But if you're not able to do that, then maybe you'll find someone else that might inspire you and fill the void that the previous one left, as well as look at the other idols you have and feel grateful that they seem like profoundly moral people. That, or you can just pray that they don't have stuff they're hiding or dark secrets of their own. But lastly, as I said in the last episode, people still have a chance to redeem themselves. We just gotta pray that they're willing to take it. And while it didn't happen with the Walkers, I'm at least hoping it could happen with Butch Hartman, as I feel he's a humble guy deep down, and I'm hoping he can realize Oaxis was a bad idea, refund the backers, and maybe make a deal with either Netflix or Hulu, at least for Jissy's sake. But what about you guys? Which idols of your own really broke your heart with their scandals and true colors coming out? And how did you handle it? Feel free to share in the comments below, but only if you're willing to. And if you have conflicting thoughts, please make sure to express them in a civil way. But whatever your thoughts are, I think we can all agree that it sucks when our heroes let us down. Oh, and please leave me a like, because I could really use the support. This is Afro, and I'll catch you all later. Bye!